today's world, there are billions of Christians, and among them 1.4 billion Catholics dominates the Christian faith. But how did a small group of followers in first century Judea become the largest Christian denomination in history? Let's examine the evidence. According to Catholic belief, Jesus founded a church around AD 30. Catholics believe that Jesus gave leadership to Peter and the other apostles. They often point to Matthew 16:18 as evidence, where Jesus says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." But this raises an important question. If Jesus established one church, which church today looks most like that original church? We will answer that question later. Catholics believe that the answer is found in history. Many people assume that Christianity began with the Bible. However, the historical reality is different. After the death and resurrection of Jesus, Christianity began to spread throughout the Roman Empire. But at that time, the New Testament did not yet exist as a complete book. There were no Christian printing presses. Most believers did not own copies of Scripture. Instead, early Christians relied on the teachings of the apostles, oral tradition, and local church leaders. This means that the church existed before the Bible was fully compiled. Catholics often emphasize this point. As the apostles grew older, they knew they would not live forever. To ensure that the church would continue after their deaths, they appointed new leaders to carry on their mission. These leaders later became known as bishops. Catholics call this process Apostolic Succession. The idea was simple. The authority given by Christ to the apostles would be passed down from one generation to the next. The Catholic Church claims that this chain of succession has never been broken. One piece of evidence often cited is from around AD 180, when Irenaeus recorded a list of the bishops of Rome, tracing their succession back to St. Peter. If we look at the 2nd century, we find some interesting evidence. Around AD 107, Ignatius of Antioch wrote several letters to Christian communities. In those letters, he repeatedly emphasized the authority of bishops and the importance of church unity. He also spoke about the Eucharist in a way that suggested it was far more than a simple symbol. Many Catholics argue that the church structure described by Ignatius looks very similar to the structure of the modern Catholic Church. Later, around AD 180, Irenaeus defended Christianity against false teachings and heresies. He argued that true Christian doctrine could be identified by tracing the succession of bishops back to the apostles. He also spoke of the Church of Rome as having a special importance among Christian churches. For many Catholics, this is considered one of the earliest pieces of evidence supporting the idea of the papacy and the authority of the Church of Rome. In AD 313, Emperor Constantine came to power and issued the Edict of Milan, which legalized Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. After centuries of persecution, Christians were finally free to worship openly without fear. Just a few years later, in AD 325, Christianity reached a major turning point. The First Council of Nicaea was called to settle important theological disputes that were dividing Christians. Hundreds of bishops from different regions gathered together to discuss these issues. At this council, the Nicene Creed was formulated, a statement of faith that is still recited by many Christians today. This event is important because it shows that the Church was already a well-organized institution long before Protestantism existed. It also demonstrates that church leaders were exercising authority and making decisions on behalf of the Christian community. But this raises another important question. Today, every Christian accepts the Bible as an authority. But who decided which books belong in the Bible? During the first few centuries of Christianity, many different writings and gospels were circulating among believers. Some examples include the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Judas. Not every writing claiming to be Christian was accepted as authentic. Church leaders and bishops had to determine which books truly reflected apostolic teaching. Over time, through various councils and discussions, the New Testament canon was recognized. Catholics often point to this fact and ask, if the Church had no authority, then who determined the books of the Bible? Then in AD 1054, Christianity experienced another major division. The Western Church and the Eastern Church separated in an event known as the Great Schism. What is important to remember is that both sides already trace their origins back to the apostles. Catholics argue that the Catholic Church was not a new organization created after the schism. Instead, they believe it was the same church that had already existed for centuries before the split occurred. Then came the Protestant Reformation in 1517. Martin Luther challenged several teachings and practices within the church because he believed some traditions had moved away from the teachings of Scripture. His movement eventually led to a major division within Western Christianity in the rise of Protestant denominations. When discussing their historical roots, Catholics often point to this event. They argue that while Protestant churches originated during or after the Reformation in the 16th century, the Catholic Church can trace its history all the way back to the 1st century. Their argument is not simply that the Catholic Church is older than other denominations. Rather, they claim that the same church founded by Jesus and led by the apostles continued through history with an unbroken line of leadership, doctrine, and sacramental life. For this reason, many Catholics see the Reformation not as the beginning of Christianity, but as a division within a church that had already existed for more than 15 centuries. When Catholics look at Christian history from the 1st century until today, they see a continuous line of bishops, sacraments, apostolic succession, the Eucharist, church councils, and the leadership of Rome. They argue that this continuity is not a coincidence. Instead, they believe it is evidence that the modern Catholic Church is the same church established by Jesus and the apostles. That is why many Catholic apologists often say, history doesn't merely support Catholicism, it points back to it. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts on this topic? Do you think history supports the Catholic Church's claims? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.